Howdy, folks. Widget Walls from NeedCoffee.com here. Listen, at this point, you're used to seeing me kind of half climb, half fall into my car. The trouble is that my video camera has now completely died. And as a result, the first part of this review is lost to us. So rather than go out and climb in the car and reshoot it in a fake manner, I thought at first we could you treat it like, one of those BBC wiped things, like Doctor Who, where we could recreate it using some audio and animation. But then I realized that I can't draw. So then I thought, well, my readers, my viewers, my listeners, whatever, you guys have a great imagination. So what I thought I would do is I would just post this random picture of a half a bagel, and then I would recreate the synopsis in the beginning of this review, and then just go right into the bit that we were able to salvage because it was shot after the camera died. The first camera died on my iPhone, so we were kind of just making do as best we could. So, here we go. Picture it in your mind. Howdy, folks. Widget Walls from NeedCoffee.com here, back again for another Wayhomer review. Here's how it works for the uninitiated. I have just left the cinema. That's that place over there, not the truck, the place behind the truck. If you were watching the movie in the truck, that would be kind of really awkward and cramped. But I've just left that cinema, and I have walked straight out here to my car and gotten in, and I'm going to tell you about the movie that I have seen today on my way home. And today, we're here to talk about The Great Gatsby. Okay, The Great Gatsby, synopsis. It goes something like this. We find our friend Nick, who is having a sort of life crisis already in progress. And as part of his therapy, he is instructed to just write down his story. He doesn't have to share it with anyone. He doesn't have to share it with himself if he wants to, but just as a form of therapy to just get the story out that he needs to tell. And the story that he tells is when he went towards the beginning of the 1920s to Long Island and was going to get into the financial market there and make a ton of money, but instead got distracted by, alcohol and women and, frivolity, as one does. And he reacquaints himself with some old friends and makes a new friend in the form of Jay Gatsby, his neighbor. And it turns out that Mr. Gatsby has a past that intertwines a little bit with Nick's past. And Mr. Gatsby has a bit of a goal that our friend Nick is going to find himself inadvertently right in the middle of, assisting him whether he, wants to or not. And thus, amidst all the women and alcohol and frivolity, hijinks thus ensue. All right, so here's the deal. The thing about Leonardo DiCaprio and Baz Luhrmann, okay, we've obviously worked together before, right? Romeo and Juliet, which I absolutely enjoyed the hell out of. A couple things. First, as I've mentioned before on here, I enjoy Leonardo DiCaprio. I have no problem with his acting. I have no problem with anything. I really like him. And I like Baz Luhrmann too. I kind of have seen, as Baz Luhrmann has progressed, that he appears to be allergic to simplicity. And he doesn't really trust his source material. And if it's not complex enough, then by God, he'll make it so, is the feeling that I get. And I, put in as Exhibit A the fact that while I really enjoyed Moulin Rouge on my first viewing, when I got the DVD, which had all the special edition stuff on it, if you go and you watch like the uncut dance sequences and some of the musical sequences, they're so much better before he edited the absolute hell out of them. So that was sort of annoying. So anyway, I sort of have this thing with Baz Luhrmann, so I was afraid of that going into this thing. Now, to me, the thing about The Great Gatsby is, it's, at its heart, a fairly simple story. Because we're talking about love both unrequited and confused. Which is pretty much, 90% of the stories that are out there. That's the theme. And that's fairly simple stuff. And you have fairly, simple scenes going on with yes, the emotions can get complex, but they're not necessarily there all the time. what I felt is that because you have these party sequences, right? Which, and by the way, the party sequences were about the only place in which the 3D actually did anything for you, because, you know, you had streamers and confetti flying around, and I don't know about you, but I don't need 3D glasses on to think about, oh, streamers and confetti. And the credits, the little proscenium that the credits appeared in, that was also 3D, and we saw that in the trailer. So the 3D is pretty much pointless. I just thought I'd throw that in there. But your party sequences, to me anyway, it seems like that they are supposed to be big and complex and crazy and, you know, balls to the wall, so that when you do have some more, you know, calmer, more intimate, more quiet moments, that you have a contrast going on, right? And you have you know, Gatsby filling his life with all of this wah, so that, you know, so to take the place of the. But the problem is everything's wah. I mean, everything is wah because it's a Baz Luhrmann film, and so it's not. Well, let me put it this way: it's not that everything is wah. I mean, not everything is in your face, but it feels like it's trying to get in your face. It feels like that the actors, even in some of the quiet scenes, are just acting so hard that you'd think that with the 3D you'd see their actingness coming right at you, right? So, I mean, that's part of my problem with the film, but that's the majority of my problem with the film, is that it just felt so forced. And even when it did manage to get quiet, and there are some quiet moments, especially Tobey Maguire. Tobey Maguire is very quiet throughout most of the film because he's simply the witness, he's simply the writer, he's simply there to narrate to us. And it doesn't make a lot of sense if you've got a narrator who's shouting at you the whole time. But I'm sure if there's a way to do that, Baz Luhrmann would have done that. But he didn't. So, spoilers, I guess. So, but basically, if you do have some quiet moments, it still feels like that they're acting so hard. And I'm like, guys, there's enough. The language is great. Just let the language happen, right? Just let that happen. But it feels like they can't let it happen. They feel like they have to just force it and be stylized. Even some of the opening scenes where you have, you know, rich people talking to one another about nothing and barely listening to one another. That sort of throwaway scene felt so stylized and weird. It was like, what am I watching? I'm not even sure what I'm watching. So it was a very, you know what, to me, it felt like unrequited and confused stuff. For me, thematically, me watching the film, I felt unrequited and confused. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe that was his point, maybe he succeeded. I have no idea. But anyway, so I mean, that's part of my problem. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio, I thought was fine. He sort of sold Gatsby, right? The core of Gatsby. Because Gatsby, I mean, by his very nature, he gets very shouty, which is interesting because DiCaprio, you know, people gave him a hard time about being shouty in Romeo and Juliet, but I'm like, Romeo's 14. I mean, who at 14, when you're madly in love, doesn't think that the world's going to end if you know, don't get laid this instant? I mean, come on. So, but anyway, so he's shouty again, and I thought it was fine here, and it worked fine here. And you've got, you know, like I said, Tobey Maguire is doing his thing about the narration, and the rest of the cast does the best they can with the fact that it feels like they're trying to avoid being fired out of a cannon. So, my thing is this. I know, and here's the thing. The one thing you can say about a Baz Luhrmann film is it's going to be pretty, right? I mean, for God's sake, even if you did not like Moulin Rouge at all, you could at least say, holy crap, it was fun to look at. This, not so much. I mean, because I was so distracted by the acting, capital A-C-T, acting, that I couldn't concentrate on that. Even the soundtrack, which is supposed to be one of the huge selling points of the film. Do all this stuff. It's like, JC, I'm sorry, I can't pay attention to your song. I'm so busy being acted at. So yeah, I think cup-wise, we're talking 2.5 out of 5 here. Because the actors did the best they could, and as well as the set design people did the best they could. So they deserve something. And as far as advice goes, I mean, if you are going to go see this film, don't pay the extra for the 3D. It's sort of pointless. No, it's actually completely pointless. You know, catch a really, really early matinee if possible. If possible, wait for a second run theater if you want to see it on the big screen. But from 90% of the world's population, wait for Blu-ray. It'll be out in 3 months, and you probably have a decent rig at home. You'll be fine. So there you go. That's The Great Gatsby. Oh, well. Thanks so much for watching these things, and if I am using this cut, be aware that we probably need another camera. Otherwise, we're just going to be recording all the Wayhomers going forward on this iPhone, which is nice, but not really what I bought it for. So yes, you can help us out by going to needcoffee.com/support and throwing some money in the tin, which will help us take care of that. God love it. It's not like we haven't put it through its paces, almost 150 reviews and other stuff. So I don't know. I think we got some of our money's worth out of the camera. Anyway, so thanks so much for watching again, and we will see you next time on the Wayhomer Reviews. Bye. No, I mean, I think, you know, I think I covered it. I mentioned that DiCaprio acted well, right?
You did.
And he was pretty. He's pretty much all the time. I mean, but that's part of why you cast him, is so that he can get that smile where he just goes, "I'm so pretty." Not that he feels pretty, because that.
You don't want to mention the 2 times where he's not pretty.
Well, what are the 2 times that he's not pretty?
When he got rained on, he got wet.
Oh, well, see, but he was wet and he was pretty. He was still pretty when wet. It doesn't matter. He's dry pretty and wet pretty. He's laminated pretty. He's waterproof pretty. You can't affect the prettiness of Leonardo DiCaprio. And I'm just saying he's a handsome guy. I got nothing for him, but you know, it's there. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Is that your final word?
I think so.
You would just shout out to Leonardo DiCaprio?
No, I've already shouted out.
You know he watches.
No, he watches. Leonardo DiCaprio watches. I know he does.
Okay.
Leo, call me later.